Obviously, we have heard from the community, we've heard from travelers throughout this summer here at Kahului, a very busy airport. We've heard about the lines, the long lines, the delays that have been happening, and some of the wait times that have been happening. It took a real team effort. I know that's said a lot at things like this, but it really did take a team effort. We're talking about with the Hawaii Department of Transportation, working hand in hand with the Transportation Security Administration, working with our airline partners. While we understand the wait times and trying to make it as easy as possible for folks to get through Kahului Airport, at the same time wanting to make sure that security was kept first and foremost. Anytime someone flies out of one of our airports, we want to make sure that it's a safe and secure flight, and that is of utmost importance. But like we said, it really was a team effort that needed to bring different departments together. And so I want to start this out with the Acting Federal Security Director for Hawaii, Scott Thaxton with the Transportation Security Administration. He's got a few points for you, and then we'll move that along with some of the other folks here that I know you guys want to hear from. So Scott Thaxton.
Thank you very much, Scott. I really appreciate it. Aloha. Like he had said, my name is Scott Thaxton. I've had the pleasure of serving as the Acting Federal Security Director for the Pacific, overseeing TSA operations here on Maui and along with the other Hawaiian Islands. Today marks a very important milestone for Kahului Airport community. However, before I get started, I want to recognize a few individuals who are indispensable when it comes to working at this airport, and that is Deborah Janine. Deborah, hi. She oversees the day-to-day operations here. She's in charge for TSA here. Her dedication and professionalism shines through every aspect of her work. Thank you, Deborah, for everything that you've done, you continue to do. And I also want to recognize the Hawaiian partners that we have, the DOT partners. First of all, Ross Higashi, thank you very much. He's the Deputy Director for all of the airports at Hawaii. Marvin, which I'll introduce later on, Moniz, a real ambassador for the whole community. So together we came up with solutions that make a difference. Thank you for working side by side with us here and across the state. Hawaii is a premier destination for tourists from around the world, and as we all know, they converge on this airport when it's time to return home. Combined with travelers from the local communities on Maui, TSA is screening more travelers at this airport than it did prior to the pre-pandemic levels. That's good news for the economy, without a doubt. With sustained travel volumes becoming the norm and no indication this trend will end, we worked very closely with DOT to come up with solutions. We're going to go through those solutions with you and share some of the exciting components of that. As the traveling public departs, they'll see a different picture starting today. Due to the increase in the numbers of PreCheck traveling base that we're seeing today, probably one of the biggest things that we did is we added an additional lane at checkpoint 2. We've now created that as a dedicated PreCheck checkpoint exclusively for the PreCheck traveling base. That also increased our capacity, which greatly reduces the line waits as what you've seen in the past. TSA will have the ability to remain and convert all type of screening at any checkpoint to meet the needs of the traveling public. But one of the best things is checkpoint 1 will now become exclusive, 7 lanes to our standard passengers. We won't have to flex with some of the operations that we've had in the past, losing some of those efficiencies when we flex. Every one of the improvements that I'm going to talk about not only is efficiency gains, but we also have a huge value on our effectiveness to make sure that we're protecting the traveling public. So there's 2 additional technologies I want to talk about and that we've invested with here. One is the computed tomography scanners for the traveling public. It has to deal with their carry-on luggage. These scanners provide additional capabilities for TSA officers during the X-ray screening process That includes generating a 3D view of those images. I'm sure you've all seen those in the medical field. They've transferred over into the screening complements, and they're a great enhancement. This extra visibility allows the security officers to resolve potential security threats on screen while reducing the number of bag checks. That's an efficiency and effectiveness gain. When a carry-on is screened through these new scanners, travelers can leave everything in their bag. Laptops, computers, everything is. The machine takes care of itself on top of our officers. TSA is also using credential authentication technology, verifying a traveler's identity. We refer to them as CAT machines. You'll hear that in the future. We scan the photo ID. No longer do you need a boarding pass when we're using these machines. And it takes it off of a live database for a 24-hour period. It's a huge enhancement for the community and the traveling public and our identity. CAT units can also be identified. They can identify fraudulent IDs and those that have been tampered with, adding another layer of security. Finally, TSA is pleased to announce the canine teams are back. We've worked with headquarters getting the dog teams back, and it is a great addition. These dogs are highly trained. They'll be based on Maui. They also contribute to the efficiencies and effectiveness of the security screening operations at the checkpoint. They will also be adding resources when needed at other transportation venues here on the island of Maui. Great compliment, great team. You're going to see all of these in action as we pass on through the agenda for today. Each of the 4 canines is paired with a TSA handler and is trained to sniff out hints, any residue of explosive residue components. They are key to our security operations since explosive remains the greatest threat to our nation's transportation security system. We couldn't be more thrilled that the canines are back here working through our headquarters and especially working with the DOT partners on that. So there's a lot more that we're going to share with you. We'll take you to, of course, the PreCheck, but there's one introduction I've got to pass on, and that is Marvin. I've had the opportunity to work at several airports across the nation. I have never in my life met a bigger ambassador than, I call him Sir Marvin. Marvin. So with that, Marvin, I'd like to bring you up, and the podium's yours, sir.
Thank you. Hey, aloha and good morning, Hawaii. I'm the shy guy, so I'll make this fast. But anyway, on behalf of the state of Hawaii, Governor David Ige, our Department of Transportation Director Jay Butade, and Deputy Director Rossi Gashi, I want to thank all of you for being here today. As you know, it was quite a ride for the last few months, processing thousands of passengers a day, and thank you for coming to Maui. But that said, there was a lot involved, a lot of partnerships put together to make the improvements that was needed to accommodate all these passengers, locals as well as visitors to the islands. Some of the changes we made, and I can say we worked very quickly to make these changes. Getting materials and equipment was always a challenge, shipping across the pond, whether it be via air or via barge. But working alongside with TSA and making this happen, FSD Scott, that you met earlier speaking here, was very key, along with Deborah Jennings, our Assistant Federal Security Director for Maui. I gotta say hats off to them. We all got together and said, hey, we gotta make this happen. We don't have much time, and we pulled it off. So what you'll see today is some improvements that we put together, as FSD mentioned earlier. Second checkpoint lane that we've added will now be additional for PreCheck. We've put out the new tent on the curbside that you can see that obviously had some challenges getting here, but it's here. Hats off to ACH, Aviair Pros, and the airlines, because without their support, this wouldn't happen. County of Maui, the mayor's office, was very supportive in lending us one of the tents that you see out on the street that would get us through the summer. And especially to the DOT, our maintenance staff, taking a lot of time, overtime, late hours of the night, painting up the checkpoint, painting some of the equipment, changing some of the fans that were mounted overhead. So there was a lot of work involved, and again, thanks to everybody. Hats off to making it happen. You see the checkpoint improvements, you see the tent, and you see the canine program that Scott mentioned earlier. So again, on behalf of the Department of Transportation, to all of you out there, thank you for your support, and the traveling public, thank you for your patience during these challenging times, but we're happy to say we're going to make it work. So thank you and aloha.
Okay, so my name is Lori Dankers, and I'm the TSA spokesperson for Hawaii, and I'm so happy to be here today. I'd like to take a little break. I'm going to bring up 4 special guests with their handlers, and I want to introduce you to the new Maui-based TSA canine team. They'll be up here in just a moment. You might want to turn around. We have our first one coming. Come in this area. All right, so there you have them, our 4 TSA explosive detection canines who are now going to be based at Maui. Let me tell you a little bit about these dogs and what they do. It's really hard to compete with the dogs, just so you know. TSA has explosive detection canines who have a singular focus on explosive and explosive detections. All of these dogs with their handlers have gone through 16 weeks of intensive training down at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio. That's the federal government's canine training center, and they've trained along the military dogs, and they've had special training to be able to work in busy transportation environments. Now, we here at Maui have had help from other airports, canines coming in from those airports to work here, but it's now time to have our own team here in Maui, and here they are. These are called passenger screening canines. They're trained to work in a busy transportation environment around other passengers. They're trained to ensure that they can even detect what we call a mobile scent of an explosive. If someone's moving throughout the airport, these dogs are trained to pinpoint the source of that odor, and they give a signal to their handler that they have detected something that needs to be followed up on. Passenger screening canines increase the efficiency of our security operations because they're able to conduct a real-time threat assessment of travelers who are going through the security checkpoint. If a dog alerts its handler to the presence of an explosive odor, TSA follows an established procedure to resolve that alarm. Travelers screened by a TSA canine may become eligible for an expedited screening process through the security checkpoint. This will increase the efficiency and the effectiveness of our operations here, improving the departure experience of travelers leaving the Kahului Airport. PSCs are trained to capably navigate among large groups of people to pinpoint that source of the odor. In fact, many travelers don't even know that a dog is working around them. However, if you're a dog lover, you can't keep your eyes off of them as they work. Explosives remain the greatest threat to aviation and our nation's transportation system, and that's why explosive detection canines are key to our operations. But with all working dogs, and as you can see, even when they were coming in here to be introduced, they were working, they were looking for something because they work to play. But all working dogs, the rules are always the same. Do not pet, touch, or feed a working dog. They have an important job to do. They're very good at doing it, and they're doing that job for you, the traveler, to keep you safe and secure. I once overheard a traveler say when they saw an explosive detection dog, they said, "I hate bombs and I love dogs." And I think that sums up exactly what this program is about. People enjoy seeing the dogs keep them safe and secure, and we're very happy to bring them here today to Maui. So I'd like to introduce the dogs individually, and I'm going to have the handler step forward so you can see them, and I'll tell you a little bit about what these dogs love to do, not only when they're working, but in their spare time. So the first one I'm going to introduce is Rozdi. Rozdi is a beautiful 2-year-old German short-haired pointer. Look at her beautiful markings. She is new to island life. Rozdi and his handler, enjoy coming to work in order to protect the traveling public. Away from work, Rozdi is obsessed with the classic game of fetch, chasing anything that can be thrown. He's also grown fond of running on the beautiful sandy beaches of Maui. What a dog. The next one I'd like to introduce is Joa. Joa is a 2-year-old black Labrador who loves to work alongside his TSA canine handler, JJ. Joa loves her job and working at the airport and loves to be rewarded after a successful search. When she's not on duty, Joa loves to play fetch, especially at one of the many beautiful beaches on Maui. Our next dog is Alpha. The happiest time for Alpha, who is a 2-year-old German short-haired pointer, is celebrating with her TSA canine handler, Jasmine, after a successful find at the checkpoint. When not on duty, Alpha loves taking walks around the neighborhood and swimming at any and every one of the lovely beaches. And finally, we have Molly. Molly is a 4-year-old German short-haired pointer who loves to sniff everything at the airport. She works very hard with her TSA canine handler, Kylie, to ensure the safety and security of the airline passengers. Off duty, Molly can be found swimming in the Pacific Ocean after playing a good game of fetch. So those are our 4 canines. You can expect to see them working when you come to the airport. That's what they do. They work to play, and they're going to be quite an asset to our security operations here. So with that being said, we're going to have another opportunity to see the dogs later. I also have provided on a link, you'll find it at the end of the press release, to some additional photos of the dogs and then the dogs with their handlers. Feel free to download and use those. But I'd like to open it up now for any questions you have about the improvements and changes to the airport, as well as about the canine teams. Go ahead.
You said the canine is back, so they work here.
So we did, yes, we used to have canines on Maui, and in 2017, we no longer had those canines assigned to this airport. That was part of a nationwide restructuring. We have been working very hard to get them back. Clearly, with the passenger volumes that we're seeing here, we needed that additional efficiency and effectiveness. And so that's why these dogs have been in training since early spring. We've been waiting a long time for this, and now they're ready to go and to begin to work. Good question. Are there any other questions? The question is, are there plans to add more canines? At this point, we're very grateful for the 4 that we have. There are about 200 dogs like these who are working nationwide at airports. We're very grateful to have those 4 here, and we'll continue to work with the program, assess our passenger volumes, assess our operations to see what direction we go.
So you mentioned that the TSA PreCheck line is being added, and just from my own travel experience, the PreCheck line is usually the shortest line. So why was it decided against that a normal line wouldn't be added as opposed to the PreCheck?
That's a great question, Scott.
That's a really good question. So if you think about it, all what we did is we moved and added an additional lane. So we always had 2 lanes open during peak for the PreCheck passengers, but it removes that and it gets the dogs allowed for the people that aren't enrolled in PreCheck to gain much more efficiency and effectiveness of 7 complete lanes for standard. That will greatly reduce the line waits that has been experienced over the whole summer that you'll see.
You heard there will be a non-PreCheck line added in the future. Is that something that they still mentioned?
You want to speak to that? Sorry. The long-term strategy for adding additional lanes.
Okay. Question is the long-term strategy for adding additional lanes. So we're in early design currently to add an additional 5 lanes on the south end of the terminal. And what that additional lanes would do is would create a separation between passengers traveling on the north end of flights and passengers that will be traveling on the south end of the terminal. So along with the canine program, that additional lanes, we should see a great reduction in wait times and lines at the airport. So that's the plan. It's in the early stages, like I said, but we hopefully within the next year and a half to 2 years, we'll get that thing up in the construction stage. Thank you.
Okay, so by moving PreCheck to the dedicated checkpoint, what we really netted was an additional lane for the standard. But that also gives us the ability to run our dogs against all standard passengers, which greatly increases our efficiency and effectiveness for that. So I know it's, I'm not trying to play off of words or what we've talked about. We added the additional lane at checkpoint 2. That gave us the ability to move all PreCheck down to checkpoint 2. Now we can open all lanes, where out of the 7 lanes, traditionally we only had 5 for standard. Now it's 7 for standard on that. Okay.
What about staffing? Have you guys had an issue? Or
Staffing across the system has been an issue, but thanks to Deborah and our hiring team that comes out of Honolulu and the union, we've worked really well. We are slightly short off of what we want to be at, but it should have no impact on the traveling community moving forward. We're good. You should see during peak all 9 lanes open. So, yeah, cut it in half. So, even though they've put up the great tents, and thank you for doing that, our goal is not to have it ever underneath the tents, have passengers waiting underneath the tents. We're going to see if there's fluctuations in the airline schedule. We're responsible to meet that. We'll see how that evolves, but we're very confident right now that it's going to reduce it in half. Okay?
All right, and I just wanted to add one more thing, is that people on Maui, there is an enrollment center for TSA PreCheck available in Wailuku, and that office is open. You can do a quick web search of TSA PreCheck enrollment Maui. Do know that appointments can be booked, but if the appointments are full at the time you'd like to go, we do accommodate walk-ins. This is run by a contractor with TSA, but there is that option to enroll, and of course, we love putting people in PreCheck because it does save time for the travel. It's more efficient and effective for the operation. So we ask people to look into that. The address is in the press release if you want to include that. If there's not any more, or there might be a few more questions, I'd be happy to take those. Otherwise, we're going to take a canine photo, group photo, and go ahead.
Sorry, so regarding what you just mentioned, a resident recently tried to get PreCheck and they said it's about a 2-month wait, so they're needing to go to another island.
Okay.
Are there any solutions, and is there a backlog?
So we always will accommodate walk-ins at those enrollment centers. So if you have time to wait, you could go today and wait until there was an opening. The other thing is that you may be able to find an appointment in another island, but what I would tell you is if you don't want to have to travel, we do have that resource available here. I would encourage people to go ahead and get an appointment in case you aren't able to walk in, so that you are on the books for that. And it is an electronic processing for TSA PreCheck approval. So all of that is done electronically. It's running about a 5 to 7 day approval right now, and you can use your known traveler number, which is what makes you TSA PreCheck eligible. You can use that number right away once you have it. Okay? All right. So I'm going to see if you wouldn't mind moving closer. This will be a good exercise for us on our dogs. And we're going to go ahead and get that group photo. We're going to hold that for about 10 seconds to make sure 10 to 15 seconds to make sure you get a great shot. And so, and there you have it, the TSA Maui-based canine teams. All right, like true working dogs, they're looking for that toy. So go ahead and give them a reward.
Come on.
All right. Who loves the dogs? Anybody? All right. So that will conclude the press conference. What I'd like to offer to all the media reps is we're going to take a walk over to checkpoint 2, take a look at the dedicated TSA PreCheck checkpoint. And when we're done there, we're going to come back to checkpoint 1 to look at the new technology. And then we're going to come back here and we're going to watch a training exercise so you can see one of the dogs at work.